Good morning, everyone, and welcome. I am Lisa Deacon, Director of Business Development with World Business Chicago. We are so pleased to have you join us this morning for our program, Leaning into Tomorrow, Why Manufacturing Thrives in Chicago, exploring the assets in the innovation ecosystem that supports manufacturing in Chicago. As you may know, today is National Manufacturing Day, and October is Manufacturing Month here in the state of Illinois, so we're especially delighted to be having this discussion today. Just a bit of housekeeping before we begin. Questions may be entered in the chat box, and we are reserving time at the end to address as many of those as possible. I'll also put my email address into the chat box so that if we don't get to all the questions, you're welcome to reach out to me directly. With that, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Andrea Zapp. Andra is President and CEO of World Business Chicago. World Business Chicago is Chicago's public-private economic development agency whose mission is to promote inclusive economic growth in Chicago as a leading global city. With that, Andy, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Lisa. Good morning, everybody. I am delighted to open today's discussions on the strengths of Chicago for manufacturing in celebration of National Manufacturing Day. First, I want to thank Governor Pritzker and his team for the proclamation recognizing Manufacturing Month in Illinois. Illinois, and more specifically Chicago, have a proud industrial legacy that is still true today, positioning Chicago to continue its strength in the manufacturing sector. Just some examples. Compared with the U.S. overall, employment in Chicago outperforms in metals-based and chemical and plastic manufacturing. Chicago also outperforms in the nation in manufacturing of transportation equipment, a trend that is projected to continue over the next decade. Manufacturing output in 2019 in the Chicago region was $74.5 billion, which ranks third in the United States. So Chicago also has strong assets needed to support a growing manufacturing sector, including Illinois' industrial energy prices are among the lowest in the Midwest and compare favorably with other key states. In fact, over the last 10 years, prices in Illinois have decreased 2% on average. Chicago has the third largest intermodal system globally, benefiting from 200 million consumers within a 500-mile radius and 30% of North American consumers within a one-day truck drive. Chicago is home to the nation's rail hub, with 6 of the 7 Class 1 railroads operating major terminals, which is the only U.S. gateway where these Class 1 railroads can interchange traffic. At over 1.2 billion square feet, Chicago has the largest industrial market in the U.S. by square feet, with over 1/3 more inventory than the next largest market, which is Los Angeles. And finally, large developable sites that are zoned for manufacturing are available to support the sector's growth. Driving much of this activity is innovation in the sector. You'll hear shortly from our industry leaders, but let me briefly highlight the following to set the stage. Since 2010, over 400 startups working with the manufacturing hardware industry have been founded in Chicago. They have raised over $330 million in venture capital funds, and of that 400, 117 are utilizing advanced manufacturing. NSF, the National Science Foundation, awarded Illinois over $39 million in funding for engineering research, and over $34 million was awarded to Illinois universities. We are also pleased that 2 important players in advanced manufacturing, mHub and MXD, are joining us here this morning, and you'll hear from them, the leaders of those organizations, shortly. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Ted Stanos. Ted is the President and CEO of the Calumet Area Industrial Commission. The Calumet Area Industrial Commission is one of the city's local partners working to grow and retain Chicago's industrial base. They are particularly strong in delivering job placement and on the job training solutions to our manufacturing base. And we know that that is so important, particularly right now. So with that, I turn it over to you, Ted. Thank you for being with us this morning.
Thank you, Andy, and I'm so pleased to be joining you here today. You've heard from Andy about the many assets that support manufacturing in Chicago. Now, in the spirit of National Manufacturing Day, I'd like to talk about the strengths of Chicago's workforce. We know that companies' growth and the growth of the sectors in Chicago depend on skilled labor force, and Chicago delivers. Total manufacturing employment in the Chicago region is over 420,000, the second largest labor market in the nation. As evidence of that, Chicago has the second highest number of supervisors for production in operations in the United States. And among the top metropolitan areas for this occupation, Chicago has the second lowest cost of labor, which is kind of amazing considering we're a pretty highly unionized town. Chicago's labor costs for manufacturing supervisors are lower than other metropolitan areas with traditional low labor rates, like Dallas and Houston, for example. Additionally, our city college system and university partners are successfully building our workforce of tomorrow. The state-of-the-art manufacturing technology and engineering center, MTech, at Richard J. Daley College prepares students for more than the 20,000 anticipated jobs coming to the region in engineering and advanced manufacturing fields during the next decade. The University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign is one of the top producers of engineering and technology programs and produces graduates in a world-class fashion. Our recent experience with a company called Flexingate is a good example of our ability to deliver. Now up on screen, I also have some of our other partners that also, besides Daley College, that also have manufacturing programs, and there's so many I can't mention them all, but all of these local community colleges and four-year institutions have dedicated programs to supply a labor force for manufacturing. Our recent experience with Flexingate is a good example. Flexingate started up as they're a tier 1 supplier of Ford, needing over 350 new employees. Daley College, along with these other partners here, helped us produce those 350 employees and helped get employees trained for this new facility. What's most important with these training institutions is they are ready to adjust their lesson plans and as technology changes. This rapidly changing world of manufacturing requires manufacturing 4.0 requires a whole new way of learning for people on the shop floor and in the classroom. Chicago's workforce is ready for both platforms. Lastly, we have a workforce system that is interwoven. When Flexingate announced its intention to hire that 350 new employees, we were able to tap into the Chicago Cook workforce system, which is interwoven and gave us the opportunity to look at thousands of potential employees. When unemployment hovers around 4%, this system was critical for Chicago manufacturers, large or small. And with that, Andy, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you so much, Ted. Really, really critical, just a reminder of the importance of partnerships, the importance of the incredible talent pool that we have here, and the opportunity to use this sector to help expand inclusion and create opportunities for people who have been typically underrepresented in what are, as you know, very good middle income jobs that can give people a chance to support their families and raise their families and have really build wealth for themselves. And so this sector is critically important, as you're all going to hear later on in the program from Deputy Mayor Samir Mayakar. It is a critical part of the Recovery Task Force work on growing the recovery economy here in Chicago post-COVID. So this is an important day, an important discussion, and thank you, Ted, for all the work you're doing to create pathways to employment for people in this important sector. I am very excited to be able to turn the panel over now to our roundtable discussion that will be led by Haven Allen. Haven is the Chief Executive Officer and co-founder of M-Hub, which is the city's leading innovation space for manufacturing. And he is an entrepreneur in his own right, and I'm very proud to say an alum of World Business Chicago, and an incredible leader in our innovation space, but also in the manufacturing sector, and the absolutely perfect person to be leading this discussion this morning. Haven, I'm handing it over to you.
Thank you very much, Andy. It's pretty amazing that M-Hub was just an idea 5 years ago that was incubated out of World Business Chicago and really driven by the regional manufacturing industry. And in just the 3 years that we've been open, we've supported over 350 companies that have raised over $320 million in revenue, have created over 1,300 jobs, and hold over 400 patents. It's part of our offensive strategy to develop anew here and create those next emerging technologies and make sure that the industry and the startups have the resources they need to excel, to innovate, and create new opportunities. With that, I'm gonna turn it over and start some introductions with an amazing panel that we've put together today. And I'll start off with you, Chandra.
Hello, everyone, and happy Manufacturing Day to my manufacturers out there. This is the start of a great day. I know we're all super busy. Really good to be here. I am the CEO of MXD. MXD stands for Manufacturing Times Digital. We are the nation's National Digital Manufacturing Institute, one of only 14 institutes across the United States. Proud to be headquartered here in Chicago on Goose Island. Thank you.
A great partner. And Jeff?
Good morning. My name is Jeff Kaminsky, and I'm with Accurate Perforating, Accurate Metal Fabricating here in Chicago. We are a third-generation family-owned business here in Chicago, known as a legacy businesses. And we have been in, traditional manufacturing, doing perforated metals on our south side location, and then our north side location, we handle fabricated metals, anything from if you go to, on the perforated side, if you were to go to Greektown, there's a building with a facade of a parking garage, and there's an architectural display on the side of it of the Parthenon. That's an idea of what we do on the architectural side. And then on the fab side, anything from enclosures to medical equipment, enclosures and boxes and shelving units and light fixtures and things like that. Happy to be here.
Thank you very much, Jeff. And Tony?
Tony Reinhardt, Ford Motor Company. Obviously, we make cars and trucks and vans and things, but we're proud to say that we've been a part of Chicago since 1926. Our facility on the south side, which currently builds our Explorer and Aviator products. We just last year invested another $1 billion into that facility, and for our new Explorer and the new Aviator. About 5,000 employees there. And then we have our Chicago stamping plant down in the Chicago Heights area. And that's another 1,200 plus employees. So we appreciate everybody being here and participating. We always say we were a country when even country wasn't cool in terms of manufacturing. And so we just love the idea of having a conversation about manufacturing, advanced manufacturing, and what it means to America. And we appreciate the opportunity. So thank you.
It's great to have you, Tony. And Ford is Chicago's largest manufacturing employer, so it's amazing the commitment you've made to this city. I'll turn it over to you, Sona.
Hi everyone, I'm Sona Shah, CEO and co-founder of Neopenda. We are a medical device startup that focuses on developing needs-based technologies for emerging markets. We are proudly based at M-Hub here in Chicago.
Perfect. All right, so we're gonna go into a moderated panel discussion. Before we do that, there is a chat box. If you want to ask additional questions, please put those up. I just want to reinforce that. And then panelists, let's have a good conversation here. I'll start off by throwing a question to Tony and Jeff. How is innovation and new technology changing your business and causing you to pivot?
Well, you want to go? I'll go first. Yeah, I'd say as far as auto manufacturing job, but for us, we're going through as much change today as we've gone through since we moved from the horse and buggy to the Model T. if you take a look at everything that's going on in terms of manufacturing, but also in terms of content, we've never seen anything like this. As we move from, to more electrification in the product, as we look for more content relative to the movement to autonomous vehicles or autonomous vehicle technologies, I think everybody has seen probably the things we have that you're seeing now, which are the early phases of that, which is the crash avoidance and the other things that you're seeing in the vehicles. We're seeing as much change and innovation in our program as we've ever seen, and it's going to be interesting where it goes, because we see it on all fronts, and it's moving pretty quickly now, and so it's going to be interesting to see exactly where it takes us and what comes from that.
So from our perspective, new technology changing business or causing us to pivot, we are absolutely using new technologies such as automation. Automation has been key in helping us to be better, faster, cheaper, more effective, and doing things that we've never done. For example, instead of using just a laser machine to operate, we are now doing what's called a lights out automation, where you set it and it automatically will load the machine, move from one aspect to another, and you can essentially let it go 24 hours with just watching it from afar, or even connected to a cell phone, for example. Another way is robotic welding. We've done welding. Many people are familiar with welding, but now we are doing robotic welding, and you still need both, but it's allowed us to be much more efficient and much more fast.
That's great. Speaking of pivoting, Sona, did your company do so in this response, and how has it impacted your startup?
Yeah, COVID has certainly had an impact, I think, globally. So we have a vital signs monitor. Our first product is a vital signs monitor called NeoGuard. It was originally designed for neonatal patients in really low resource environments. When COVID kind of hit early this year, we decided that the best strategy that we had was actually to get in the COVID fight. We had an opportunity, but more so a responsibility, to leverage our technology to be able to help monitor COVID positive patients. So we did pivot. We were able to rapidly adapt our neonatal monitor for use in adults. And in doing so, we've been able to start a couple of pilots around remote patient monitoring. We've been able to work in low resource facilities pretty much around the globe to help monitor patients and get them healthier and out of the facilities faster.
That's great. And Chandra, leading one of the national network of manufacturing institutes, you've been part of the overall disruption that COVID has put on the entire industry. I mean, can you talk a little bit about MXD's role in spinning up supply chain and making sure that we have the resources to combat this pandemic?
Oh boy, yeah. Unfortunately, I only have a few minutes. I wish we could spend hours on this topic. I know it is near and dear to the hearts of everyone here. Oh my gosh, there has been so many changes, and I think we have to take a minute to pause for all those that aren't as fortunate right now in the manufacturing community. We're a national nonprofit. Our sole job at MXD is to help U.S. manufacturers become more competitive. That's it. That's what we do. And so we are doing it through digital, which really has only become more important and more critical during this pandemic time. So, for us, there's so much that's been done. Obviously, like many of you and like a lot of the folks at MHub, when it first started, we converted our factory floor to making PPE. I mean, just like everybody else, we did it, we donated it. I think that was a critical first response. But now manufacturers, we really have to get to the next phase, which is like, all right, how are we helping our supply chains? How are we leveraging, exactly as the examples kind of that Jeff and Tony were giving and Sona, how are we leveraging our great skills, particularly in the Chicago area and the Midwest, to be globally competitive through technology? So we use our advanced manufacturing floor on Goose Island, where we're kind of trying to make digital come alive so people can see it. So from the smallest manufacturers to the largest, we have members, Rolls-Royce, Boeing, Lockheed, hundreds of small businesses, like all coming together kind of to solve problems that are really too big for any one company. And let's be honest, you're going to come to solutions quicker, faster, better if you're convening it in a group than if you're doing it alone. I think that's the other big advice I give to folks in this time of that's why, you know, what we do at MXD, what you guys do at MHub, all these kind of public-private partnerships, you know, these groups, we're here because we believe it'll be better, meaning faster, quicker, more economical for us to actually move our manufacturers forward along this digital thread.
Absolutely. I know one of the major issues that came about with COVID was the supply chains, and it was initially with PPE, but then it became things like bikes, electronics, food, isopropanol, cameras. And, you know, I just want to talk a little bit about what has sort of the increased conversation about manufacturing supply chain impacted you, and what do you see are the new opportunities moving forward into the present?
So at the beginning of the pandemic, when the city of Chicago announced that they were turning McCormick Place into an alternative care facility, the supply chains for things like beds were non-existent. And we contacted the Army Corps of Engineers, and within a few days manufactured 2,000 beds for the McCormick Place facility. And, you know, in about 8 days, we manufactured over 600,000 individual components. And we had never made a bed like that before. So it was an opportunity. It was a situation where we saw that things were bad and we made lemonade out of lemons. But the supply chain, which was more international, became very localized. And it in many cases, worked to our advantage as well as the city of Chicago's advantage from a manufacturing standpoint.
It's pretty wild because, you know, in those early days, there was all sorts of associations, manufacturers, and groups that were coming together under what was called the Essential Equipment Task Force. You know, calls every day at 9 a.m. trying to find where isopropanol is and ventilators. And in that process, over 700 manufacturers in the state of Illinois stood up, raised their hands, offered their production facility and their talent so that we would have the necessary PPE and ventilators. And, you know, one of those groups, Ford, you took a big major step in offering up to manufacturer ventilators. I mean, can you talk us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I've learned more about PPE in the last 6 months than I ever dreamed I would learn in my career or life, maybe. You know, we've had a presence in a number of those spaces. We started out with face shields, and we built face shields, right? The plastic face shields. We've also done masks. We've done gowns. We've also now been working in conjunction with GE on ventilators and 3M on PAPRs. So we're now, you know, we work through that and continue to do some of that. We actually, Monday was our PPE day in Chicago. We worked with By the Hand and the Rainbow Push Coalition and our dealers to distribute about 200,000 masks. And we've also just recently contributed 1 million masks to the city of Chicago, 1 million masks to Cook County, and 1 million masks to the state of Illinois. Those are those level 3 ASTM masks. So yeah, we had to pivot, trying to fill those needs, and you know, and we're pretty proud of that. And as you know, as Jeff and others, we're all trying to do our part and kick in these COVID times, right?
Absolutely. I mean, did any of you all experience, you know, supply chain constraints with your parts, your components, and the materials you needed to produce, not PPE, but the products that you manufacture on a day-to-day basis?
Oh yes, yeah, absolutely.
We have shifted some of our purchasing, as instead of coming from Asia and China, it is now coming from other facilities in the U.S. and even Europe. We're doing a lot more business with Europe today than we used to be.
Sona,
yeah.
Tony?
Yeah, no, I was saying, yeah, we had the same thing, because then you had to get into, you know, what were the policies and protocols for each individual state or country. We had parts that got stuck in, you know, transit, right, things at the beginning. But then you also, you know, we also had the other side for us too, which was distribution. And we had to work with states and other entities to be able to, you know, get the dealerships to the place where they could also, you know, operate in this situation, because they were looking at, you know, inability to have people in the dealership to work, to have online sales opportunities. And then you get into the conversations about, well, what's the difference between a wet signature and an e-signature on a notary or something like that? So there's been a lot of challenges to work through, and, you know, up and down, right, the line in terms of production, suppliers, production, and then distribution even.
Sona.
Yeah, so it's interesting. Our contract manufacturer is based in Malaysia, which had a government shutdown for many weeks early on in the COVID cycle. So as a really small startup, we were forced to start thinking about what does the secondary supply chain look like? What does contract manufacturing look like here in the US? And of course, Chicago was a natural choice for us to start looking, given kind of all of the relevance and the opportunities that are available in the Chicago area. So, you know, it's not something that a startup typically has bandwidth to do, just given the resources and constraints. But I think COVID has highlighted that the need for supply chain locally is important. And we've started to build that out even further. You know, we continue to see shortages in supply chain for specific components in creating our products. We had delays in creating pilot builds. We have delays now in mass production runs. And part of that is the lead time for certain components is changing. The landscape of what's required and what's not required is changing. And so we're constantly looking at ways to just keep up to date on how do we make sure that we can actually get product to users, particularly given the importance of vital signs monitoring during COVID. So supply chain certainly has been disrupted, but I think in some ways has also highlighted the importance for hardware and the relevance of hardware and software and being able to merge both of those together.
Is this disruption going to lead to a lasting sort of supply chain realignment globally, or is this just sort of a short-term aberration? I'll throw that to Tony and Jeff and Chandra.
Jeff, you want to go? I'll go. Absolutely. Absolutely, it's going to change your mindset, right? Because you got to now game plan for the risk of any kind of a future pandemic, and what does that mean? And so you've got to be able to have at least everything we do in redundancy, right? So you want to make sure you don't have just one source, but now you're going to have to take a look at what does it mean especially for us as a global company, because we have a lot of parts that come from different parts of the world, both into the U.S. and out of the U.S. And so it's something you're going to have to game plan. Everybody's going to think about, especially if you're doing any kind of global business.
So we're seeing it on both sides. We're seeing it both as we relate to suppliers, but also as customers relate to us. So from the supplier side, we are definitely working with alternative suppliers, many of which are local and many of which are coming from areas that we had not seen and considered before because of the deficiencies in the supply chain due to COVID and the slowdowns. And on the customer related side, we're having customers come to us because we can be a one-stop shop. We're able to produce and fulfill a customer's needs in a way that they feel is protected and safer than where they have gone before. It's still about the cost, but it's also about a comfort level and an ability to be able to deliver.
And if I can add in here, Haven, taking it up a level, all of our members, I would say supply chain issues are probably the top of mind for anything. And I want to share some good news and kind of talk a little bit about, this is what's great about the Chicago tech community, honestly, and some of the silver linings, if you will, in this terrible pandemic. We've received a lot of additional money from the government, from CARES, from DOD, from FDA, honestly, to work specifically on the supply chain. So one of our new projects, it's called Supply Chain Risk Alert for Wearables, and we're getting millions of dollars to help work on this problem with all of our members. And really what it is, it's using AI, it's using all this advanced technology to get data from hundreds of sources all over the world, bringing it all together and be able to do a predictive. I mean, when you're talking about supply chain, what you need more than anything else is predictability. Even if it's going to be late, that sucks. But if you can predict that it's going to be late and it's going to be late, you can put all those other things in place and wrap around it to give your manufacturing operations the resiliency that's needed during these crazy times. So this rapid analysis tool that we're working on, I think is going to be incredibly helpful, again, for manufacturers of all sizes. They kind of optimize their supply chain resiliency and agility during these emergencies. And there's so much data out there. And an emergency doesn't have to be a pandemic. What if there was an earthquake? What if there's so many things that we need to take into account here. This is what I love about technology for manufacturing, is that we can use this in order to help these companies and help our supply chains. And I do think there is going to be a global change on supply chain. I think Tony said it, like the attitude and the perspective that the lens you're going to be looking through is going to be, I think, permanently changed by this. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I love being able to look local as well, as internationally, to see what you need to get done.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Jen, you're 100% right. I was going to say, because, right, what you have to do, you have to realize, right, we're all trying to be lean, we're all trying to be just-in-time delivery, right? And this is going to make us think differently going forward, and we're going to have, the risks and rewards of this are applies pretty thoroughly, right?
Maybe a silver lining in all this. I know at MHub, we're always trying to make sure that what is created here can be made here and made in the U.S. And I think in our 3 years, it's a number that we track. How much, what's the total dollar amount of manufacturing contracts that we put out into the manufacturing supply base? And so far, we've put about $48 billion into the U.S. manufacturing community, and which is great being in Illinois, right? Illinois has the most diversified manufacturing base with over 9 distinct sectors, 12,000 different businesses, employing over 500,000 people and producing over $100 billion. Like, people don't think of Chicago and Illinois as a manufacturing economy, but over $100 billion. Like, that's the second largest manufacturing economy in the world. And to do that, you have to have a workforce. And, my next question I'd like to throw out, I'm going to start with Tony. How is your workforce needs adapted to new technologies, and how can we better equip the workforce of tomorrow?
Well, of course, for us, that's a constant development, right? We never stop. Workforce development is something that we're doing, every day, right? Because the technologies, the applications are all changing. And so, and this is one area where, we've been really fortunate, where the public-private partnerships, last year as an example, when we were down for our to tool the plant, we worked with the city, county, state, and we were actually training people during the downtime, right? We had, technical needs that we needed to do as we moved to a more complicated vehicle, right? And so we're able to do that. So that was a real plus. And so having that public-private partnership in this space is extremely important to us, because developing those training programs, right? And trying to get more skilled tradespeople and all those type of things that are able to do that. Because I always say, right, an electrician for us is not someone who pulls wire for a custom home builder, right? They have to have a significantly higher level of technical expertise. And so being able to make sure that they're current and they're state of the art, right? Because we're not going to, put somebody on there to a $1 million robotics cell, you know what I'm saying? It's not properly trained. But that technology changes constantly. So keeping up with that is critical, right? For us to be efficient, competitive, and be able to, in the marketplace. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Jeff or Chandra, do you want anything you want to add here?
From our perspective, I believe that it starts with the mindset. You need to have a mindset of adaptability and a willingness to learn. If I look back over the last 10 years of what we were doing then and our capabilities compared to what we're able to do today, it's vastly different, even in our world that's been around for years. So from a workforce standpoint, the mindset needs to be that we might not be able to do it now, but we need to figure out how to do it and how to do it, and what we need to train our people to bring in new efficiencies such as equipment. And with that mindset, we're able to deliver better and more for our customers.
So this is, I got to go here because this is my favorite subject. I love talking about workforce. Everybody knows it. I mean, it doesn't matter. I can give you all the greatest technology at MXD, but if you don't have the workers to use it and are trained able to do it, it's useless. So, we always have to talk about this. And this is going to bring me to another one of my favorite topics, which is cybersecurity, and something that we haven't really mentioned here yet. And it's a really critical piece of the whole digital threat, especially in times, again, of the pandemic, fast moving, data becoming even more important. So, you know, I mean, I hope everyone here knows this. We know like 4.2 million manufacturing jobs needed in the United States, 2 million expected to go unfulfilled due to a skill shortage. I mean, it's crazy. I used to be a CEO of a metal manufacturing company. I couldn't find the welders, the machinists, the fitters, right? I know Tony and Jeff totally know this. However, at MXD, I'm now focused, that's a huge pipeline problem, always has been. I'm focused on the next pipeline. I want to have that same problem. Where are the digital workers and the cybersecurity folks that we're going to need going into the 21st century? It is critical. So we have, like, right now, we just released this last month, September, it's October now, right? In September, we announced a new cybersecurity hiring guide. And this is free, not just for our members. You can go to our website, you can download it. 247 cybersecurity job roles in manufacturing, not cybersecurity across the board, not in the financial sector, cybersecurity in manufacturing, IT, OT combined. And it focuses on roles, like not just the jobs. So it allows you, exactly as Jeff said, you need an adaptable workforce tool set from everything from SMMs and people at different levels of cyber and digital maturity. Several years ago, we did a digital taxonomy, which is already out to date, right? Because the jobs are changing so fast. I mean, things like, have you thought about you're gonna need a digital ethicist in the future, right? Like, you know, there's all these great things that, at least if you guys download these guides, that will give you something to think about and think about planning, like where we're gonna go for the future. Right now, there are not enough cybersecurity people in the United States, period. It's a negative in terms of jobs. So just like we're missing the great skilled trades, we're also missing, you know, this next generation. We need to be retraining, upskilling. We have a program, MXD Learn, and that does all these type of things. We work with Daily College. Obviously, we work with the local community from high schools. We are starting in the high schools with our training, through the community colleges, and then obviously into our wonderful academic partners and apprenticeships, which is another key piece of this. But I could talk about this for a long time, so I want to stop.
Us as well, right? Cybersecurity, when you think about where we're going with autonomous vehicle technology and mobility solutions and applications that we're all looking at, whether it's in, you know, because with the autonomous vehicles, there's going to be connectivity in the community, and there's going to have to be, you know, an example is going to be, how will that vehicle interact with a railroad crossing, right? There's going to be a connection to something in the public sector, then back to the private sector with the rail line and all those type of things, or over-the-air updates for us, which are taking place more and more as we, you know, the vehicles are electrified. Yeah, there's a shortage of cybersecurity people, and we would agree with that 100%.
I want to mention one more thing that Chandra just brought up about the schools, and that is, college is not for everyone, and especially when it comes to manufacturing, there are some great opportunities out there, especially in this marketplace, the Chicago marketplace. There are fantastic opportunities for people to go to trade schools, and we need those people. We need those people to help run our presses. We need those people to run our lasers and our machines, and as we automate and become more efficient and the technology increases, we need those people in those trades as well. So I want to encourage any students out there that are listening today to look at those avenues as well.
And I know
Jeff and I, real quick, Jeff and I on a panel several years ago had the same conversation, and I said the same thing I'm saying now, I think, right? We never have enough good skilled tradespeople.
Yeah, and what about the other side of that, the high-skilled engineers and designers? I know at MHub, we see that as our primary resource, and we have about 600 engineers and designers that are leveraging MHub, and they're collaborating with startups, but they're also working with industry on short-term R&D projects of flexing. I mean, you know, Chicago has it's the top 5 for computer engineers, electrical engineers, and mechanical engineers in the U.S. Like, we attract, that's sort of the talent pool. But I mean, what about access there and at that level?
Absolutely. The bed project, designing a bed, was something that we couldn't have done without help from our engineering department and the high-skilled people in that area that made it all happen.
I'll just add a note in here about that. We recognized very early on that having a high-skilled engineer that focuses on manufacturing and managing the manufacturing process is extraordinarily important. So we're a team of 6 people, and we have one person who is full-time dedicated to manufacturing, supply chain, quality. And so it's a large percentage of our team that is focused on that, because it's such a high need to make sure that everything goes through the manufacturing process appropriately, it's set up appropriately, and that products consistently have the same high quality for every time we run. So I think, like everybody's been saying on the panel, manufacturing runs across the gamut of, trade school all the way to very high skilled engineers. Everybody is necessary in the manufacturing community.
And there's nothing that says, right, somebody comes to us out of high school, can't go with, our programs, et cetera, and be trained, be educated, move up, from a skilled trades to an engineering, that's something else that we see a lot these days too, right? And we're willing to invest in that on a regular basis.
It's pretty amazing that there's pipelines exactly like that. You can go from high school to a trade school, get your degree. If you have a B average, free tuition at daily college. If you maintain that B average, automatic entry into UIC's engineering program, and you can create these pathways and continuous pipelines to develop skills over the lifetime of a career. I switch gears a little bit. I mean, what subsectors within advanced manufacturing will yield the greatest opportunity in the next 5 years? Which of these sectors are most likely to be needed of expertise from a global perspective and local and national partners?
Well,
I'll direct that to you, Sandra, to start off.
You can go, Jeff. I'll follow you if you want.
well, ladies first. Ladies first.
Oh, you're so kind. Ladies first. Okay, so I kind of already talked about what I think one of the biggest opportunities is, because it's also a huge shortfall right now, which is the cybersecurity side. I do want to just, one thing I didn't mention before that I wanted to, is people need to understand we obviously get a lot of funding from the U.S. Department of Defense. In case people aren't clear, cybersecurity attacks in the U.S. are up a percentage, post-COVID. So, like, again, I get that it was always a problem before. We always want to protect our IP, but the urgency of this is crazy when we look at even how many attacks are coming in. And at us, like at MXD, we really like to lead by example. So we do our own kind of cyber hygiene. We have a cyber wall on our shop floor, where our future factory, where you can come in and you can see an attack, because most people don't really want to test hacks, right, in your own company and stop your production. You can come to MXD, we'll show you what happens. We'll show you all those PLCs on your shop floor or vulnerabilities, because I have to be honest, one of the greatest problems is awareness. Most people don't even realize, manufacturing, it's 35% of all cyber espionage attacks. It's the most attacked area, more than, again, finance, more than all these other areas. So if I could get that news out here when you ask, like, where are the greatest opportunities, what's happening in the next 5 to 10 years, Haven, that is a huge one. I will say though, because I don't want to talk all cyber, the other ones I would say for us that we look at with our members, most people don't know this either. We're just opening up really the first 5G test bed for manufacturers in the United States. We're in partnership with AT&T and some of our other members. So right here on Goose Island, we've already put in the infrastructure, and we're gonna hopefully be working on testing some things, because 5G is also going to revolutionize manufacturing in different ways. And again, is it the end all and be all? Is it the only thing? No, but if you want me to tell you, think 5-10 years out, you should be thinking about these different types of things like 5G. And along with that comes digital twinning. I think that's another huge, people talk a lot about robotics and AI. 5% of manufacturers maybe use digital twins in their process today. And obviously, as capabilities go up in this area, costs are going to come down. But I think if I have to be brief, those are 3 areas I would be paying attention to in the next 5 to 10 years. There you go, Jeff.
Thanks. Well, I agree with Chandra. The security and cybersecurity is going to be critical. From our perspective, we have customers who are in so many different diversified industries, from HVAC to oil and gas to environmental. And we don't know where some of those opportunities are going to be coming from yet, but it's important to maintain those relationships and continue to explore avenues with them. I do believe that COVID-related opportunities are going to be significant in the next, certainly in the next 2 to 3 years, and probably healthcare related and environmental related in the next 5 years. You know, from the COVID related, I'll give you a very good example that we're currently doing. We've been making light fixtures for many years. So now with COVID, we're making a UV light fixture for a customer. And the idea behind it is it will neutralize and kill COVID. So those types of opportunities and subsectors are huge. Another area is we have a division called Select Space, and these are outdoor restaurant partitions that you'll see around this city and other areas. And now what we're doing is Select Space shields, where we're putting an acrylic shield and creating separations between people. And then the third thing is we're making rapid deployment rooms that are like 10 by 10. So a hospital, for example, or a medical facility in a surge can very quickly be able to add rooms very inexpensively in a short amount of time. So these subsectors are still developing, and there's a great deal of them.
That's great. And just
quickly,
go ahead.
If I may.
Yeah.
I completely agree with Jeff that I think healthcare will continue to increase, and one piece of that will be accessibility, and just being able to make sure that everybody, we put in the patient's hands devices, tools, things that are necessary to keep themselves healthy. So I think one of those trends, and it extends beyond the healthcare sector, is just making sure that everybody has accessibility. And with all the advances that we're seeing in manufacturing becoming more efficient and cost effective, it does become easier for us to put devices in the hands of everybody.
Absolutely. And obviously, go ahead, Tony.
Yeah, real quick. Yeah, security, cybersecurity, 100% agreement. Privacy is more data, and we all know what that means these days. You know, people think that's a gold mine, and we digitize and we create this connectivity, et cetera. But and also to go to Jeff though, in terms of COVID, there's a lot of room for technology development there. As one example, right? We're already working on for our police cruisers. So we developed a software update that'll actually heat up the vehicle on the inside to 133 degrees for 15 minutes, because that's the time frame you need to eliminate the virus. I mean, people got to think about how in a pandemic world to protect their product as well, right? So that it's, the safety of that, and more importantly, the credibility and, the confidence people have in your product. So there's going to be a lot of room for all of us in these spaces.
Absolutely. And now we're going to move to sort of public Q&A. So I think Lisa's going to join and throw some of the questions out. Please do add more to the chat.
Thanks, Haven. This has been such a great discussion, and people have shared questions in the chat and have emailed, and when registering have shared some questions as well. So let's get started. And I really love this one because I think it emphasizes the role of small and medium-sized manufacturers and the importance of Chicago's economy. The question is, as a small shop, how can I use the tools to innovate without a lot of money and resources? Where is the best place to start?
Sona, you want to take a stab at that?
I'm going to put in a shameless plug for MHub here because that's where we're based out of, and we do a lot of our prototyping there. We do a lot of our, and it's access to mentors and people that have a lot of expertise that we just don't have within our team because we're so small. So, I think there are a lot of ways that you can reach out to the Chicago community, and it's one of the things I love most about being in Chicago as a small entity is there are plenty of resources, plenty of incredible people that have expertise that you can reach out to and be able to do things very cost effectively. Cash flow, of course, is one of our key things that we look at, and organizations like MHub enable us to be able to manage that cash flow well, but also be able to continue to prototype and iterate.
I would add to that, be willing to partner with local manufacturers as well and outsource what you can't do. If you have the idea and you have the ability to find someone to do it with you, then partner.
Yep.
Okay, Haven, I'm feeling jealous because I don't have a shameless plug. So
I'll shameless plug you. I'll shameless plug you. No, it's amazing. Like over the last 5 years, MXD opened, and it is the nation's leading digital manufacturing design innovation institute, where industry is defining where are those next great breakthrough opportunities. And I'll turn it over to you, but you've brought a consortium of small universities, very large OEMs together to drive this innovation and give them the tools they need to succeed.
Thanks, Dave, and I appreciate that. And I really won't be too shameless here, except to say everybody's welcome. Honestly, if you're a small business, it's $500 to join. It's really easy. But that's not the point. What I actually really want to talk about is because I was a small business, a small machine shop manufacturer when I first started out. So the best thing I could tell, that advice, I love it, is you can't do anything until you assess where you're at. And I'm all about ROI. So we do things like digital assessments, right? You need to figure out what do you have, and then where can you go and how cost effectively. Is it better to put more sensors in? Is it better to do more of the workforce training? Money is tight. Like, I completely get it. Like, so we have a lot of kind of ROI tools, tools to help you figure out, where are you going to invest your first, $50, $100, $5,000, $5 million, for the big folks and on up. So I would just say, please, and come to these spaces, MHub and MXD, we're neutral. I just want to be clear. We don't represent any one specific product, any one specific solution. So if you want to kind of go to a neutral, trusted space or come see how things are tried out, and that'd be my final plea for everyone here, is that it is manufacturing day. When you go visit your local manufacturer, see what other people are doing, get, advice like from Jeff and from Tony, come out to MHub, to MXD, come tour when we can. We're doing touring right now, socially distanced, right? But I know MHub is too, but it's hard, but I would say that's the advice I would give to any small manufacturer. So come on out, right?
All right, that's fantastic. Our next question is, we've talked a bit about supply chain issues and how that's been impacted from COVID, but this question is related. How likely is that we might see significant reshoring occur in the United States?
I think it's very likely. We are already seeing it. We are seeing confidence levels decrease in overseas, and we are experiencing work coming back to the United States and back to our facilities, which has been fantastic.
Yeah, there was actually considerable movement in that direction even prior to COVID, for other reasons like transportation costs and other things. So, I think it'll balance itself out, but yeah, there's going to continue to be a movement in that direction.
So we've received a lot of questions as it relates to talent and connecting to that talent. And so some of the questions are, what are the entry-level employment opportunities and how to recruit for those? We've seen that, one of our attendees works with high schoolers, and she wants to know how best to sort of take what you've been talking about in terms of opportunities for that pipeline and bring that down to the high school level. And then finally, as we're talking about talent, can you speak to sort of how important apprenticeships are for the industry and the types of certifications that you're looking for when graduating from graduating apprenticeships?
Well, for us, this is a big space on both those questions. We actually have a program we do called Next Generation Learning, which we're working with nearly 30 communities now, which is a high school-based program. It's about experiential learning. And what it does, it creates an atmosphere for those students to get mentoring, to get internships, to do things. One thing we found over the years is that, everybody, we kind of got to a place where manufacturing was kind of, on the side, and everybody wanted their students, their kids to be doctors and lawyers and things. And there is a lot of great opportunities in this, as we've been talking about today, for young people. So it's a very important. So we do reach out pretty regularly into those spaces and try to work with that. And apprenticeships are huge for us. We've never given up on that. We've just had Ted just recently helped us, right, with some training that we did through his efforts, his group in connecting, and we got an apprentice class or two. And so we continually work in both those spaces, and they're critical for us because they just the pipeline. I always say that these days, right, it used to be that it was all, we began with an agri-based business, business climate. We went to industrialization. Really now it's all about the individuals. It's about your employees. They are your advantage. and everything we can do to develop them and to relate to them and get to them as early as possible, make them understand what the opportunities are, and that there can be good career paths, is definitely an advantage for us.
It looks like we're starting to back up against time. Just have one quick hit question. What is the #1 advantage that you see for Chicago manufacturers? One word.
Logistics.
Logistics. Chandra.
Be of people.
Sona.
I would echo that. Talent.
Talent. Tony.
Well, Jeff stole mine. I was going to say logistics as well, just because of where it's at, centrally located and those type of things.
Sorry.
Right. Great
All right, so
minds think
talent and
alike,
logistics.
right?
Talent and logistics. That's great.
Balance and logistics. I would agree with both of those.
Absolutely.
Perfect. I think that concludes. Thank you, World Business Chicago, for pulling this together, and thank you all the panelists. We're happy to be able to celebrate this day with you all.
Wow. Thank you to all of our panelists. Thank you, Haven. That was a terrific discussion. And I think for me, just particularly exciting about the opportunities that we have here, how innovative we have been and resilient we have been in response to the challenges presented by COVID, and what we can accomplish here in Chicago in the manufacturing sector. And so it's a perfect segue to our next speaker. It is really my pleasure to introduce our final speaker, Deputy Mayor Samir Mayakar. Deputy Mayor Samir is the Deputy Mayor for Neighborhood and Economic Development for the City of Chicago. He is our close partner at World Business Chicago on helping to grow our economy. And he is, in his own right, an entrepreneur who is very familiar with many of the challenges that the panel discussed. And so it is really my pleasure and privilege to introduce Samir. Samir, I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Andy, and good morning, everybody. And I have to say happy Manufacturing Day to everybody. I want to echo Andy's comments about Chicago's industrial legacy, and that really helps continue to support our growth today. So for those of you who might not know, the city of Chicago has a system of industrial corridors, and many of them are called planned manufacturing districts. They comprise 26 geographic areas, ranging in size on the low end from 70 acres all the way up to over 3,000 acres of land specifically designated for industry. And so in our Chicago economy, manufacturing actually comprises about 12% of our regional GDP. And truthfully, we're one of the few cities that actually has these industrial zones dedicated for manufacturing in the city. And partly that's, I think, as everyone was just highlighting, the strength of this economy is that nexus between the strength of our manufacturers and also the strength of our transportation, distribution, logistics, and warehousing sector, because we are the largest intermodal hub in the Western Hemisphere. And if you're a manufacturer, that's absolutely critical for you. So we are proud to have manufacturing in Chicago, and that's where I come from. So even though I'm a new government person, before this I founded a manufacturing company on the south side in Brownsville, and we built up that operation and manufactured in the city of Chicago and still do today. So I definitely carry that voice here in City Hall as we make policy. One thing that you should all be aware of, so as we recover from COVID, the city of Chicago, in partnership with World Business Chicago and so many folks from across industry, put out a recovery task force report. And we were the first American city to publish a comprehensive recovery plan. And one of the key pillars in that plan is to really focus on growing the manufacturing sector in our city. And that's because of what you've just heard in the discussion today. But also, that last question about reshoring or onshoring in manufacturing, we definitely have heard from a lot of CEOs that is a trend. In fact, there was a recent poll that said that over 60% of companies are thinking of radically changing their manufacturing footprint from abroad to bring it back to the US because of disruptions from COVID. And that's building on top of trends that we already saw due to kind of trade war and trade tariff and barrier issues. So I think it's an encouraging time, especially to be a US-based manufacturer, there's an incredible amount of opportunity. We're getting calls every day for folks looking for more facility space, land, and more rapid permitting to be able to grow in Chicago. And the Recovery Task Force commitment and the commitment we have in City Hall is to making sure that we have policies in place and kind of the right level of concierge treatment, so that if you're a manufacturer and you want to grow in our city, that we can help you expedite that permitting and do whatever is necessary to make that happen. And I certainly have experienced that personally. So the manufacturing sector is vitally important to our city and our recovery from COVID. And it's also one of the more diverse sectors in our economy in terms of employing people from all neighborhoods and all backgrounds in the city. And so just know that you have an ally in City Hall and Mayor Lightfoot and our team. And we're very happy to be supporting the sector, especially on Manufacturing Day. And if you have ideas on what more we can be doing, certainly let Andy and the team at World Business Chicago know. But just in closing, you know, the manufacturing sector for over 150 years has been vital to the Chicago economy. And so we want you to know, especially as you're thinking about potentially coming to the city or growing here, that we're here to help you. And so I hope you have a good rest of the day. And I'm going to turn things back over to Lisa to close out this panel. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Deputy Mayor Mayakar. Really appreciate your words. And I want to thank all of our speakers for joining us this morning. This has been a really great discussion in talking about the assets that Chicago has to support the industry, as well as the innovation that's driving the sector overall. So thank you again for all of you that have joined us. We will be sharing this video and sending it out to all those that registered, as well as making it available on our social media platforms in the website. Thank you and enjoy Manufacturing Day. Have a good day.